Hey everybody, and welcome to today's lesson about measuring angles. Before we can start talking about measuring angles, we've got to talk about what exactly an angle is. Well, an angle is formed by two rays with the same endpoint. And over to the right, you can see an angle here. It's formed by ray QR and ray QS. Now, the endpoint Q is what we call the vertex of the angle. Right, and that's where my two rays come together at that same point. That becomes our vertex. Now, to name this angle, we could call the angle simply by its vertex, and we could say this is angle Q. But when there are multiple angles right next to each other, we've got to be more specific than that. So to name the angle more accurately, we'll pick a point on one side and then include the vertex, and then pick a point on the other side. So another name for this angle could be angle RQS, or we could flip it around and say angle SQR. But either way, when you say the name of the angle, you should be able to trace and come up with that angle. So for example, when I say R to Q to S, I should create that angle with my name. All right. Now, point A, this point way outside here, we say that is on the exterior of the angle, on the outside there, and point B is on the interior of the angle, okay, or on the inside there. All right. Now, why don't you try? How about answering some questions about the picture at the right? And don't worry about measuring this angle with the protractor. Just do parts A, B, D, and E. Go ahead and pause the video and then check your answers. All right, now the vertex of this angle is where the two rays come together, and that would be right there at S. The interior of the angle, that's the inside here. We were asked to shade that, so there's the interior of our angle. The sides of the angle. One side of the angle is ray SM, and it's important to label it as a ray. And the other side is ray SW. You could have also called that SG. All right, there's two possible names for that side. All right, 5 different names for the angle. We could name this angle by its vertex, so angle S. We could name it starting with M, we could go M, S, W. If we started at M again, we could do M, S, G. Flipping around to the other side, we could start with W and go W, S, M. Or we could go angle G, S, M. Notice that S is in the middle of each of those names, and then one point on each side starts and ends it. So you should be able to trace your angle with the name. Cool. Moving on, let's talk specifically about some types of angles. Here I've got a description of each in words, and then I've got my picture. A zero angle is exactly that. It has a measure of 0. A zero angle is a ray. Okay, zero angle is a ray. That's important to note. An acute angle is a measure has a measure between 0 and 90 degrees. All right, that's our small angles. A right angle has a measure of exactly 90 degrees. An obtuse angle is an angle that has a measure between 90 and 180. That's our big angle over here. And then a straight angle has a measure of exactly 180 degrees, and that is a line. Okay, a straight angle is a line. So just to reiterate that, straight angle is a line. A zero angle is a ray. Okay, so bumping down to number 2 here, if I had to name 2 straight angles, one angle I could say is H, and it's still going to go to the vertex CD. And if I want to start it on the other side, I could say angle NCH. Both of those are example of straight angles. If I traced my name here, HCD, that forms a straight line. Okay? Now, zero angles. Zero angles, you remember, are rays. So an example of a zero angle could be U, C, U. Okay, and notice how I started out on the side, I went into the vertex and bounced back out. So I could say U, C, U. That'd be a zero angle. Another example of a zero angle could be H, C, H. Okay, those are both examples of zero angles. I'm using 3 letters, but the first and the last are the same. That shows that it's a ray. All right. Looking at this same picture at the right, if I were to name an acute angle, you remember has a degree measure between 0 and 90. So this angle over here looks like a skinnier angle. That's acute. That would be angle NCU. That's one way to name this particular angle, NCU. Okay, and then obtuse angle would be this big one over here, HCU. So angle HCU would be your obtuse angle. All right, let's look here at a protractor. Okay, and this protractor is how we can actually measure angles on paper. I've given you an angle measure, and I'm going to kind of trace the name, and we'll determine the measure of that angle. So angle MLN, if I go into the vertex and then back out here, okay, it's not a very straight line, but it'll work. You can see we started right down here at 0, right? And then that angle opens all the way up to 60 degrees. Okay? Let's look at the next example. Clear our old one out. NLP. If I were to trace NLP, here's N, L, and then P. Okay? That angle started right at 60 and went all the way to 130. Okay, so that means inside there, that is 70 degrees. Right? And then NLQ. Let's go ahead and trace NLQ. N, L, and then Q. Right, that is an obtuse angle, and this leg lies right at 0. So I'm going to look how far it's opened up. It's opened all the way up here, and now I'm looking at these bottom numbers. Look, that's where my 0 is. So I'm looking at my bottom numbers. How far is it opened up? That's 120 degrees. All right, why don't you all try questions 4 and 5. Pause the video and then check your answers. All right, OLP, O, L, and then to P here. So I start at 90 and I'm going to 130. That would be 40 degrees. And then MLQ, MLQ stays right across the bottom there. That is a straight angle. It has a measure of 180 degrees. All right, folks, that's it for our measuring angles video. From here, you need to complete page 19, and then you're going to take the 7.3 quiz on MathXL. Hope you learned a lot. That's all for now.